the concept of truth became a lot more democratized simply because we have a lot more producer of truth. To a certain degree, I would argue that that's a good thing, but there is always a downside to it. It's less of an AI issue, but it's more of a...
Welcome to the Game of Impossible podcast. My name is Leon and this is my dad, Idris Jala. We are a father and son podcast where we discuss all things transformation through the lens of business, leadership, sport, and faith. And today I'm really happy to have Foong Chee Mun with us here, the CEO of YTL AI Labs, as well as the Chief Product Officer of Reimagining. Chiman, thanks so much for being here on the show with us today.
Thank you for having me, and always been a big fan of the show.
That means a lot coming from you. We've been sort of observing your journey. I mean, just for those who don't know, you are the first Malaysian founder to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of those accolades. But before we do so, I think before we talk about the doing, we want to understand the real being, what drives someone like yourself to do the things that you do. And we often talk about the curse of being the first, many firsts for you, even with Reimagining being another first. What is it that drives you, and who is Chiman?
I come from KL. I always come from KL. My whole family are in KL. We don't have a hometown. Our hometown is in Kapong. So we are a wholly KL family. I think my granddad came from China, potentially directly to Setapak or something, right? So I grew up in KL, went to school in the US in this university called Purdue University, and that was an interesting time because it was during the mid-90s. That was the nascent of internet. I don't, maybe for Leon, you don't remember the time where internet wasn't born yet.
I was there.
I was there, but I was very young.
Okay. The nice thing about going to university there at the time is because Purdue is at the Midwest, and which means that that's where all the connectivity goes through because it's at the center of the of America, which means that we have a wealth of research dollars from top companies at the time, Silicon Graphics, Microsoft, you name it, right? So that was my first brush with the forefront of technology, and that fascinated me entirely to see how other people are pushing the envelope of technology. So there was one summer that I wanted to go for a trip, and I didn't feel good about using my dad's money to do it. So I look at the list of employment, part-time employment in the university, and the top paying one turned out to be an AI lab. So I went to work there as a researcher. Not because I'm interested in AI, it's because it was the top paying gig. I became really interested in AI. So the nice thing about going to this research university is that you get this kind of opportunity. And since then, and that's like in the 90s, right? AI wasn't particularly glamorous at the time. In fact, I told my mom I was working on AI, and she has no idea what it is whatsoever, which is very different from day and age now, right? So then when I was graduating, my professor, the professor of the research lab, said, "Hey, why don't we start a company to cater the technology to the U.S. Department of Defense, doing human behavior prediction with artificial intelligence." I did it for 10 years, and that was great. Great learning experience, not just from artificial intelligence standpoint, but from entrepreneurship standpoint, from running a company standpoint. Then after 10 years, we sold it to a much bigger defense contractor, and me and a couple of buddies from the same research lab. But my buddy went on to become an investment banker. And after 10 years, we kept in touch, and we decided, hey, why don't we start something? And that was circa 2013. That was the tail end of the great financial crisis.
What were you doing when he was the investment banker?
I was running the research company, the AI research company.
And how long was that period when you two were doing two different things?
10 years.
10 years.
10
Wow,
years,
wow.
yes. But we kept in touch.
Okay.
He went to University of Chicago, and but he came to Purdue to do research because Purdue is a technical university.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where we have a lot of research. And so we decided to start this company called MoneyLion. It was meant to be sort of a neo-bank, a neo-digital bank serving the middle American. And we decided, and the reason why we think that there was a niche and there is a niche on that front is because a lot of the big banks in America were retreating their services from middle Americans because it's too expensive to serve them. And we think that with the thesis of having the forefront of technology and artificial intelligence, we were able to serve them and giving them a lot of services without breaking the bank, so to say, right? So, and that's what we did. And the truth is that circa 2013, there is no word such as fintech. I think it was invented like later on. And when we heard the word, it's like, he's fin, I'm tech. Okay, that makes sense. I think that's where we are in, right? And digital bank wasn't a big thing.
Right.
In fact, it wasn't a thing at that time,
At
right?
all, right?
Yeah. So this and that's when we stumble into potentially the age of digital bank / fintech / AI all at once at 2013 without realizing that we are embarking on that kind of journey, which like all these first accolades, it sounds fun after the fact, but the truth is that you almost never actually set out to do it.
Yeah, it's like a journey of discovery.
Yes. In fact, like what you wanted to do, and my philosophy is that it's always trying to build something that serves much bigger than yourself. And the bigger the impact it is something that I pour a lot of my energy into.
There's a function and there's a greater purpose to it. And then by simple virtue of that, you maybe end up being a pioneer.
Correct.
In something.
And to bring it closer in terms of timeline is that when we first started Right Bank, we were wondering because Bank Negara wanted to have digital banks to cater to the underserved, right? So our theory is that yes, providing credit to the underserved, potentially the B40s, is a way to serve the underserved. But is it really a good thing to do? Because the B40 really need the credit, or should they? Is it good for them in the first place? It's tough to answer that kind of question. However, to reinvent the user interface for banking systems in such a way that almost any type of person can use it is because it's based on natural human language. That could be something that is entirely catering towards the underserved in a different way. And I think that is a more direct way to cater towards the underserved. In case in point is like my mom, she can surf Facebook 8 hours a day, but for the life of her cannot make a regular bank transfer on CIMB or Maybank. She has to wait until I come back during the weekend to make the transfer. And really, it's really not that tough to make bank transfer in Maybank. But unfortunately is that when we show her this kind of user interface, the natural user interface, she can do it. And especially with Chinese, typing in Chinese, talking in Chinese, it becomes, it's not necessarily faster for her, but she became a lot more comfortable because the bot, the large language model actually coach her to make the transfer and coach her through, whatever question that she was asking, like, can you show me the list of transaction that I have for last week to this person? And that is a very conversational type of relationship based off user interface rather than a tool-based user interface.
Yeah. I mean, for people who have not used who've not used RightBank. I mean, it really is so intuitive for me as well. I mean, I don't consider myself necessarily a technological dinosaur, but even for me, I find just using regular kind of apps very cumbersome. There's many things that you have to tap, and I think in this case, it's so easy that you could just put in kind of a screenshot of an invoice, and then it does it for you. It verifies, okay, this is the amount, and this is the bank account that it goes into. Shall I proceed? Yes, please, and it's done.
It's not like we want to be the world first AI-driven banking system. That's not the objective of it. The objective of it is to be able to rethink the way how banking service can be provided to a greater segment of people that previously might find it challenging. We happen to build the right bank during the explosion of generative AI. And what it does is that we are reimagining banking system in such a way that instead of having like an app that is as a tool, it forms relationship with you. And the way that it can form relationship with you is because it acts like a person rather than a tool itself.
That's interesting that you talk about the kind of human aspect. I heard you say before that you can't out-compute a computer, but you can out-human a computer. How does that really play out in the way that you lead? Because on the one hand, you're basically having to lead human beings, but lead human beings in a way to develop, programs, develop applications that might potentially even do them out of a job. So there's an interesting tension that you hold as a leader. How does that play out for you?
It's a very good question. I didn't have a lot of jobs before. I had 2 jobs before building RightBank, right? So, but I was fortunate enough in the 2 jobs that I had to build organization in order to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. So, the last 20 years was really interesting, and it accumulated in when we were building RightBank. And from the get-go, I wanted to build the bank with a group of people that can be very agile, that can change their job scope. Because the truth is this, right? As much as we think we can plan away the chaos, we are living in a very exponential time, right? So, which means that things are changing very fast. So a lot of stuff is not about what you plan, it's how you react to. So when I hire people, when I curate the organization, I wanted people that can react very well and react accurately, and the most in such a way to have lesser planning and veer towards how do you react towards different type of trends that are going on in the world, because no one else can predict the rise of generative AI right at that time, right? No one else can predict the rise of mobile revolution. And just think about it, right? Like Grab is completely is changing the way that most of the even jobs are being served in this day and age, right? Not just restaurants, right? So and the internet is tough to predict that how it completely disintermediate a lot of political ownership of newspapers and whatnot. Nowadays, 50% of Malaysians are getting their information from social media. So these are the kind of stuff that is hard for any one of us to predict, but how you react to it becomes very important. How potentially someone like Anthony Tan saw that and say, hey, maybe I should start an app that allow you to call taxi and bring food, and that changed the way that we live.
In terms of reactivity, is that something that you can? Is that something that's an innate or inherent characteristic in people, or is that something that you can train? And I think maybe put on your kind of hiring cap as you're doing this. Do you look out for those innate traits, or is there an element where you think maybe this person doesn't quite have that reactivity, but I can coach it?
Usually, the people that react very well are the people that are not in a stasis situation. And so whenever I look for people that has potentially two polar of different things. For example, right? I look for people that are extremely hardworking, but always trying to find shortcuts. Right. So these are two polar. Like because they're not in stasis.
Because they're always trying to lazy find, person, and they'll find out a more efficient way to do the work.
Yes. And for example, people that are extremely creative, right, yet extremely analytical. Right. So those are usually and those are the kind of people that potentially do not have an equilibrium that and they always try to find different equilibriums, and that is something that I try to get from people, which that means that they are always looking for something. Us as digital bank need to do well as well, right? We have to be constantly be innovating. We have to constantly be bringing customer delights in such a way, and this is because we are such a new bank, and it will be impossible to have the trust on day one. So how do you gain trust is that constantly you're proven to be useful and constantly on a daily basis bringing delights to the consumers. And this is how you build trust. And I think it will take a bit of time, a couple of years, but I think eventually we'll get there.
We do a lot of change management for companies. And that in itself has a lot of challenges. But I think when you are entering a sector where there's so much regulation, how do you build trust? How do you show those capabilities at that kind of early ideation phase where there isn't necessarily a proof of concept yet?
So I think I'm innately an engineer. So what I do is that even with how we comply, we think of it as most an engineering problem. So we built scaffold around it. When we innovate on this front, where we build stuff, we make sure that from a compliance standpoint, it complies, but we can automatically check if the compliance is being done, and essentially to build automation within the organization. And we think that is something that we should definitely be investing a lot in. Like, for example, our procurement process. We are in the middle of making AI agents with it, right? So, and because it's not just what you cater to the consumers. If the organization is better run, then you have more resources to cater to innovate to the consumers and essentially to deal with compliance. If you look at compliance, what it is that and there's no question that we are in a industry that is extremely important to the country and to the people as well, because we are holding people's money, right? So there's no question that we have to be very compliant, similar to healthcare as well, right? So and which is okay, but we deal with it from an engineering standpoint. We built processes, we built software, we built systems in order to ensure compliance in this particular case.
Yeah. So while maybe the actual product itself, especially if you are pioneering, you might not have anything sort of solid. There is a risk and there is a bet that you place, but you make sure that you put a lot of attention in the systems and the processes. Those are some things that you can sort of have reference points to first and foremost, but actually there are also things that you can build out from the very beginning.
Yes. It's quite interesting, right? Like, because if you look at like if you buy high performance car, they often also not just they're talking about their engine, they talk about their brakes as well. And same thing here, right? Like in order to build like a very high performance innovation engine, you need a good compliance system or brake system that is able to feed back to the innovation engine.
Have you done some thinking on stablecoin? I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
I'm not a big expert in crypto, but I think from what I observe is that in terms of like cross-country remittance and whatnot, it seems to be a very good mechanism to be able to do it. Obviously, there will be different can of worm that we are opening. For example, if you have a Malaysian dollar stable coin, so who is controlling it? Is it going to be BNM that is controlling it, or if BNM is not controlling it, what happened to the money supply? So it's the stuff.
You see, the way I see it, I looked at cryptocurrency and I worried about, but most people fear about Bitcoin because it's not backed by real asset. So people worry about that. That's one. The other thing that is happening with Bitcoin is that the tokenization as it goes through, it's rife for money laundering. You cannot identify at any point in the transaction who is holding it.
Right.
So you can really money launder everything. So that's today with stablecoin, it's now back one-to-one with the US Treasury. The reason why Donald Trump and team, they introduced a thing called Genius Act.
Right.
Genius Act, I mean, by name, it's supposed to be genius. So two things they've now done. The first one is they allowed everybody who put $1 through stablecoin, it's backed by treasury bills.
Right.
One-to-one. So that means you don't have the risk anymore because it's real value one-to-one.
Right.
You will not lose the money, which the cryptocurrency Bitcoin didn't have that.
Right. And you find demand for the US Treasury.
Now that is the point.
That's the way the genius is.
That is the genius. Now they don't have to go through a long process of quantitative easing to get Senate approval to print money.
Right.
The US can print money based on the demand.
Right.
When people put the money and buy the tokenization and the stable coin, they are actually daily doing printing money.
Yes.
Money velocities. And the second thing that's happening now is that you can do money laundering. You don't have to go via the SWIFT system. You can do trades. You can avoid the sanctions, Russian sanctions, if you follow that model, because there is no identification of all the transaction along the way. It completely discards that. So what they're doing now is Donald Trump and team are very worried of de-dollarization because BRICS are coming. There's a lot of trades that's going to be bilateral, excluding the dollar. So they introduced the stable coin because it's backed with the dollar. It's now protecting the US dollar.
Yes. Even accelerating dollarization.
Yes. Of course, Donald Trump has set his own family business to go and participate in this as well.
Right. So that is a whole different discussion, I think.
A whole lot of discussion. But when you think about this, it's going to fundamentally change international trade, fundamentally. So in Europe, they're already doing an equivalent as well. So this, I think, to my mind, the next few years, we'll see a revolution in banking.
Right. Yeah.
What you guys are doing in digital banking, what they're doing on cross-border trade using a stable coin and stuff, it's going to change dramatically. Next 5 years, I see a revolution in banking.
Right. Yeah. I think the thing about this kind of digital currency is the fact that they are programmable, right? And that also makes, like, I think 2025 is important year because it's the year that the content being created by AI eclipse the amount of content that is created by human being. And 2 years from now, 80% of the content in the world will be created by AI and 20% will be by human being, right? So I think human work will follow similar trajectory where very soon, more than 50% of the work that we do are usually done by AI agents, right? And very soon it will be 80%, which means that your commerce, your internet buying will be done by agents rather than yourself. So which means that this kind of like programmable currency becomes your agent will hold your money rather than like you going to the bank and doing the transactions yourself.
What does that look like in terms of team shape then, as you are building? And I think it's such an interesting thing to be able to build an AI first business while also realizing that, you mentioned earlier you can plan all you like, but things are growing and developing at exponential pace. What does this mean for the shape of your organization now? But then also, what do you predict to be the shape for not just YTL AI Labs, but I think just for organizations, businesses moving forward?
I think it's we are in very interesting times, and the nature of jobs are being challenged pretty much on a daily basis in this day and age, right? So one of the biggest capability of large language model is really good at coding. In fact, that's the best thing that it can do at this point, right? So it can outcode like 70% of the coders out there. So which means that if you think about it, in a digital bank, we like to have a lot of builders. So most digital bank will aim to have 50% of their workforce to be engineers, right? But if much of the coding is done by agent, do you need that many engineers? But the other way to think about it is that, which really means that the velocity of your product delivery should becomes a lot faster given the same amount of engineer, right?
Correct.
And the nature of engineer change as well, because you can have AI to write some of the code that you have been writing. So which means that engineer has more time to think about what they want to
Real
build.
adding value to the thinking process.
Yes. So which means that you are moving the engineers to be more product minded.
That's right.
To be more consumer minded simply because they have to think now instead of how to. Most software engineering is very simple. You think about like moving this data from A to B and how to transform it. Those are essentially much of the work. And with AI, a lot of these grunt work can be done by AI. So the nature of a software engineer becomes a lot more different. Is what you build instead of how you build it. So the evolution of this particular job type becomes more akin to a product manager rather than a coder itself, which is quite interesting. If you think about product manager, they used to think about what to build, right? And a little bit about think about how to build it. But because the tool in this day and age allow you to do what we call the vibe coding, which means that you can code without knowing much of the code. So which means that the product manager suddenly can become more, they will think about how to build it simply because they can vibe code stuff and instead of thinking so much entirely about what to build. So you can see that if you look at the pie chart of the task, the two are converging. The coders and the product managers are converging to the same person.
Absolutely.
So which means that the unicorn in the future will be very product-minded engineers, right? So now, that's the change in organization, right? We used to structure this kind of organization in parts, which means that each of the part, which means is a small team of people that is usually led by a product manager and then a whole bunch of engineers. But now everyone can be product managers or everyone can be engineers. So how do you structure that can be quite interesting going forward. I don't have all the answers to it. But I'm just glad that we live in the age where at any given point you can put two product managers on the same pod and they will be able to churn out certain product. Or you can put three engineers in the same pod without a product manager, they will be able to churn out product as well.
You know, with more people being able to build and churn out product, right? What are some key lenses that you assess products by?
Again, we are usually quite first principle. We want to have product that have the biggest impact to the users who use it, right? So which means that there are moments of delights that and usually you can measure it quite well.
What's a moment of delight?
When you upload your ZonePay bill and it suddenly fill up all the reference for you, because everyone that I talk to really hate to go to copy the reference one, reference two. And at this point, if you look at like these tools and AI, it still have a very short amount of time that it works independently, right? Which means that I ask the AI will respond in like 2 seconds, and then that was the amount of thinking that it does. But in the future, I assume that like this kind of AI will be able to do things that are longer independently. For example, I want to go to Japan end of the year. If the yen dip below this, just buy $500 of it. This long-standing type of situation that can be quite. I think AI agent will be converging towards like this long-standing type of jobs as well. Like for example, if my bank account has more than $2,000, transfer the remainder to a fixed deposit account. So the way that we think about finance will be changed fundamentally as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. I want to talk now about kind of shifting perspectives. So you've spent a lot of time in the US, and then now kind of setting footing here in Malaysia. Even professionally, I wonder. There's something that you talked about, common thread of just sort of putting your head down and just focusing on what's in front of you, regardless of where you are. And I wonder now if let's talk about ilmu. So right now, obviously, ilmu, the whole premise of ilmu is that it's highly contextualized, Malaysian context. But if we're thinking about global impact as well, how do you draw the line between sort of focusing on context and head down and addressing current needs in front of us, while also thinking about global impact? How do you hold that tension between local and global?
We made the choice to be entirely Malaysian, and the sort of the genesis story of Ilmu is the fact that the AI Labs was born after the right bank. When I first joined the right bank, what we wanted to do is essentially to reinvent the user interface. That's when we started using some of the run-on-the-mill large language models such as OpenAI, Gemini, and even DeepSeek for that matter, right? So very soon you run into a problem where there are a lot of things that it cannot do very well. For example, code switch in the AI world is called code switch, which means that you mix or you change language midway, right? So which is something that Malaysian really likes to do. But if you look at like the two biggest AI producer country in the world, which is the US and China, they don't code switch as much. So we run into that problem, and then that's when we decided, hey, let's do our own LLM that allow us to do a lot of this stuff, right? And not just that, right? So because like a large language model is not just about language, it's about the culture behind it as well. And that part of it evolve all of the time, right? So that's when we think that we want to be the entity that potentially help to scribe the evolution of culture as well. So case in point is that when a lot of the users of the bank was trying to do those shortcuts, XDE and all this stuff. The truth is that the LLM is able to, you can train an LLM to understand all of this stuff quite easily, simply because there are so many forums out there that uses this kind of language, right? So the LLM will be able to understand it very well. However, OpenAI will not focus on it. DeepSeek will not focus on it. So we are the only one who will be focusing on it. And I think this kind of trend will be increasingly obvious going into the future, where countries will build their own sovereign AI, and simply because it sort of preserve and exemplify the kind of culture that we all have, the collective consciousness that we all have, right? And I think it changed the way that platform and products being built. For example, in the age of mobile, in the age of internet, right? The same iPhone can be reused everywhere. But I think going forward is that if the iPhone or a car, for example, needs to have local contextualization, the car platform can be international, but the intelligence has to be local. And this is, I think, we are in a global trend where the production of intelligence are localized, and we are. The good thing is that Ilmu is one of the example of it, and I think a lot of countries are going to follow suit.
My view about countries and companies, the winners and losers are the ones who embrace AI and only answer two fundamental questions. These are the winners and the losers. The ones that are winning is the ones who says, how can I use AI to do the things better and faster? That's all. No third thing. How do I do it faster and better?
Mm-hmm.
And the other companies or corporations who use AI just to automate an old system, it's not going to improve things. So the fundamental question is the leadership in a country or a company that says, how can I embrace AI to do the thing faster and better? These are the ones who win. But there's a lot of change involved in doing that. This is not AI now. You know, in get down to implementation. This is the way the human beings are involved. At one of our sessions, and the last session, we talked about everybody in the world knows that for ease of doing business, Singapore is consistently one or two top in the world in doing that. We all know that. We know there are 10 rulers registering a company, getting electricity, cross-border trade, insolvency, all of that is there. But how come nobody does it? We all know it because there's a lot of change process involved.
Right.
There's a lot of resistance to change. There's nothing to do with AI.
Right. Exactly.
This is leadership. This is where people are involved. So to my mind, when I think about AI is a tool that really facilitates us to get to answers very quickly and much faster and better. But we must be prepared to embrace it. Say, fundamentally, I'm going to use AI to do it faster and better.
Right.
But there are a lot of problems that's outside the realm of AI.
Right.
Change the new way of working, everything that you do. Like the comment I made about Russia, the conversation I had with Herman Graf, the CEO of Hasba Bank. They've got all the technologies available, the facial recognition in the bank. In fact, the Russian government was so interested in the facial technology that they had in the bank. So at that time, Medvedev and the team had asked him, can we use your technology, install it in the MRT in Moscow and catch the criminals? Within 1 month, they caught most of the hardcore criminals. Because the moment the guy walks into it, they catch him at the next station. Because the facial recognition is so advanced, they can do. But the problem is, they cannot execute it because tremendous redundancy is involved.
Right.
So if you go down that path, they're going to get rid of all the bank branches. They're going to redundant people. So this is going to, what are they going to do? So it's like pressing the button.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? Because then there's always this argument about, you know, I sat in on the recent AI roundtable hosted by 500 Global, which you were a part of, and it was very interesting because on the one hand you've got one school of thought that says, well, actually there needs to be done in the area of public policy. So the ball is basically in the government's court to enable change and to build trust. But then there were also some voices saying that actually the way that we build it is maybe just by showing real use cases first. And so basically saying that the change happens from the ground up. You know, with that, what do you think is the right kind of mix of public policy that needs to take effect versus builders actually just doing the stuff, companies just becoming and adopting more AI in their work?
I think there's no question that you need to do both, right? And that's where the how do you walk the line is going to be very interesting, right? Because there is no question we are in the midst of one of the biggest technological platform shift that we ever experienced potentially in our life. I think it's bigger than internet. I think it's bigger than mobile, right? So it's going to change how we do stuff in general. So the government will have to encourage this, and not just encouraging it, will give potentially how to build an engine within Malaysia that we are not just a user of AI, but builder of AI as well, right? So this starts from education, start from university, start from research, start from immigration policy, where we allow really talented AI researchers to come here. So those are what the policy part can do, and it's really important, because we live in a world that is highly competitive. If we are not doing it, Singapore is going to do it, Indonesia is going to do it, Thailand is going to do it. So then, if everyone else is doing it, we are not doing it, we put us in the hind foot. And us as citizens, as private companies, we need to embrace it, and we really need to innovate with it as well. I think a lot of companies look at innovation to think that it's really expensive, but I think AI has since take the cost of innovation significantly lower, potentially 80% lower, and that makes a lot of things highly possible. So it's on us to innovate as well. And case in point, this is what we did in Rightbank and Ilmu as well, because it's what we want to contribute towards the conversation, and not just be on the sideline and be on the armchair. And Dato, you have so much experience, right? So what do you think? Because this, at least in my life, it's definitely one of the greatest change that I've seen, and not just I've seen, I can feel that the changes are gonna go a lot more far-ranging than before. How do you think, as a nation, as a society, we can embrace this change and potentially coming out of it? Potentially as a Malaysia, as an AI hub.
I am completely convinced that we must look at the way China is doing it. They figured it out. There are two things. I were having a huge conversation with the folks from Inspur. Inspur is a very, very big Chinese company. They're number one on IT, in China, on cloud, on server, and then number two in the world. 36,000 employees. They are simply saying, very simple, the only way that it can succeed in the AI world is to make sure that there's a real collaboration between the government and the corporation and society. And that is a must. If the three of them don't come together to do it, it wouldn't work. And that is why Inspur is actually a government-linked company. Because all policies associated with every aspect here is recommended by Inspur, and they put out those input for government to inform policy, public policies that govern the way in which they deal with AI, they deal with cloud computing and everything. So it is the structure between the two, even the funding as well, where government says, I will put money on R&D to assist these kind of things that they do. And they are very clear for them, where do they put more of their resources. They said, USA is leading the path in creating something new, but they are very clear in their mind. They are the ones that take it and improve it in the application.
Right.
So they really, so they have what's called an AI factory. That's where they put all this, and then the AI hosting area where they put all this together. But they sat down there to ask them the question, let the US do all the discovery to come with new technology, new ideas, but let's take it and run with it and the application.
And run faster
than the because US. That's where the money is.
Right.
The money, they understand that. So when I speak to this guy, it was very hard for me because I'm not so literate in the AI terminology, and I don't speak Mandarin as well. So it's doubly difficult to understand them. But the moment you sit down and patiently try to understand what they're doing, then I realize they live in a different world. Here in Malaysia, we're talking about AI, but they are already doing it. And so I told them I'm going to come and visit them, look at what they do, really want to understand and study what they're doing fundamentally, because they are way ahead of us.
Right.
So I think in Malaysia, we got to learn from them, to my view. Right. We should learn from the Chinese. We must be fast adapters rather than the innovators. That the innovators, this is so much money is going to be poured into discovery for innovating. Let's not be gifted amateurs.
Right.
Let's not. No, we go down there and big fast implementers.
Right.
That's where the money is.
From an organization standpoint, right? And you have been in big organizations, right? So how do you think like big organizations can because I think in the age of AI, agility becomes extremely important. So how do you think like big transform?
Take the example. When I spoke to them, I mean, my eyes were really wide open because the guy was telling me in a very gunslinger fashion. He said, Idris, if we do the AI here, we will get the university to go and do the work, not the IT people doing the rollout.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental shift in the way the corporations run. Most corporations traditionally use the IT department to roll out the AI technologies within the company. No. We bring in the university.
So to get rid of the IT department.
Yeah, get rid of the IT department because that's where the new latest thinking. This thing moves so fast.
Yeah.
And the students are literally free because they're studying.
They're cheap also.
They're very cheap and they are full of energy as well.
Right.
They don't have the hindrances to say you can't do this and you can't do this. The students are free from all the bureaucracies in a corporation. They were changing rules.
Right.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I spent a whole day in Singapore talking to Philip Yeo, the chairman of EDB. So the interesting thing was, everybody who talks about the success of Singapore today look as if it was a very orderly, planned approach that they were doing it. In reality, it wasn't like that. He was saying, cowboy, we do things project by project. Basically he's saying that he broke all the rules. He got a book. The book's written, he's a civil servant. The book is called Neither Civil Nor Servant. He broke all the rules because he said it's the rules that prevent progress. So in a way, when we embrace AI, there are full of rules that prevent us from implementing the decisions. The fast decisions, the better decisions, the rules are there that prevent us from doing it. Some fellow in leadership has to say, we will break these rules. So he told me during that session that I think it's in the book. I'm reading the chapter 1 now. He gave me the book. The whole flight from Singapore is reading his book. It's so captivating. So he is saying that a crime for public good is not a crime. A crime for public good is not a crime. And I can say it very openly because the man, he wears his heart on his sleeve, and it's in the book as well. And so, I mean, he's even being prepared to say in the public domain to tell ministers to resign, completely focus on execution, not so much on the planning process. Everything they're doing. So describe vividly how they developed Jurong, how Batam was developed, and the real truth behind it was really almost cowboy.
Right.
But they had the full backing of Lee Kuan Yew. That is not an AI domain. That's a human domain.
So potentially challenging the rules from first principle constantly is a good thing to do in the age of AI.
I would begin by saying this, and we talked about it in the last episode. Frontier. When I say frontier, it's leapfrogging. Ask the fundamental question, who is now on the frontier? You can even ask AI. On payment system, who is a frontier corporation that use it? He will give you the answer. So now you begin and asking the question, what exactly are the steps that they're doing? So don't try to improve your current processes.
Right.
It will take you 10 light years to get there.
Right.
Don't do that.
Right.
Go straight there.
Yes.
And so the word Leon and I talked about is take the new frontier processes, blanco the name of that corporation, put your name there, your company, and say, how can I contextualize this into our circumstances, context, change it to that it become the Malaysian, the way in which we do it, but better.
Right.
And so don't start from improving where your current position, jump to the frontier and work from there. Normal life of a corporation. You go to a department, you ask the finance people, why do you produce this report? They will tell you, 5 years ago, we had a finance director that required this report. And he said, produce this monthly report. And then we did it. Then he left. The new finance director come in, he adds another report. But he didn't say remove the previous one
Right.
because in case somebody else is reading the report. So every 5 years is a new guy coming in. He adds another one. He adds another. No one sat down and say, who reads these reports? Can we get rid of them? And if you sit down and really look at it, I would safely say 50% of the reports are totally unnecessary in any large corporation.
I agree.
And when you say of the 50% that is necessary, how many chapters is really relevant? 80% the chapters not relevant.
Right.
I would say confidently today, the thick annual reports that corporations in Malaysia produce, 500 pages, totally unnecessary.
So by focusing on more kind of frontier work, pioneering work, you've got less precedent to hold you back.
You know, Leon and I were chit-chatting about we don't program. In our family, there's only one that programs, our younger son.
I cheat lah. I vibe code.
That's the programming.
So I told him, I said, Leon, you don't program. We don't. Why don't you use? So he used this thing called Replit. So we have in our company a very important tool for consulting. We call it segmented profit and loss statement. I said, Leon, you use Replit and try and tell it to produce a model that helps us to automate this now. So I think, I don't know how long did it take for you to do.
It was about like maybe 15 minutes.
15 minutes. He did a better test in 15. He didn't know no programming. So he gave it to me, gave it to one of a guy called Shah. He said, Shah, you know how to do this. Can you now do it? So I gave him a lot of things I wanted in that model. So he did it. So yesterday, we were waiting to meet up with Philip Yo at a cafe. So there were four of us. There was Rizwan, there was Daryl, there was Shah, there was me. I said, how much time do we have left? We have 2 hours to kill. Right. Let's now take this model. Let's now do it as we speak here. So we really sat in 2 hours, really asking, none of us are programmers, by the way.
Right.
We really started to do that. We asked to segment by product, segment them by territory, and then we did a frontier. We said, this is a segment, this is the P&L by segment for this product, by territory. Let's now create a dummy frontier company. Let's just say this is what they do for that segment. This is the profit, this is the gross profit, this is operating cost, this is their overhead. Now tell me, this is my company by product, by segment. Tell me what are the levers to pull for me to make it to get there.
Right.
Immediately the answer is there. You should increase your price by 5% for this segment. For that segment, you should increase your price by 7%.
Right.
And this is one, you should reduce your cost of goods sold by 10%. And this was just done in just 2 hours.
So this is an example how AI is making everyone a builder instead of like a very small set of builder. And beyond that, I think AI also increased everyone around you like 10 points of IQ. Suddenly, like your friend is so much smarter, and, which is amazing, right? Like we all know 10 points of IQ is the difference between like a manager to like a guy who never get promoted anyway. So now everyone is at that level.
But that's interesting, right? Because it also then takes us to the conversation of truth. And maybe truth and depth as well. Because, you have so much access to stuff. I can easily make myself seem a lot smarter because I maybe went on Ilmu beforehand to do some very quick research. But there's this thing, and we've been asking this because I work in a church, and we've been talking a lot about what are the proper scaffolds actually for using AI to write a sermon, for example. Because on the one hand, I think it's so helpful to be able to do all your cross-referencing in a matter of seconds. It would normally take a week last time to cross-reference different books to then package it into relevant teaching. But now you can do that immediately. But with that, there's also the question of, if to preach is also seen as a spiritual exercise, and sometimes a lot of that spiritual exercise is found in the wrestling, in the struggling and wrestling with these concepts. How do we hold those two things, speed as well as depth, intention?
I think that's the stirring question, right? There's and the other thing is that it's not just about sermon. Like if songs, right? We for generations we have been entertained and inspired, touched by different songs, right? And songs are generally we are touched by it because it's written by Bruce Springsteen or people that we look up to, and another emotional human being. And Spotify just lately have created an AI band that managed to entertain millions of users, inspired millions of users. On one hand, we are glad because millions of users were inspired by the songs that were created by AI. On the other hand, the AI has absolutely zero conviction in saying what it says in the song, right? So similar in the case that you were given as well. I think humanity. I don't have to answer for it, but then humanity will have to confront the age, which means that the age of abundance is here, because like a lot of people can be cheaply be entertained or inspired, yet I think going forward, what human has to do potentially is to leap above the average band. Like only really good talented person will be able to truly surpass that. In your case, is also the same, which is only a highly convicted, highly inspiring pastor can produce really remarkable sermons, which I think is good for human civilization in general, because I think we get new heights, and the lesser heights, the average are a lot more democratized to a certain degree.
In the end, the preacher has to deliver the sermon.
Yes.
So the emotion comes through the preacher that comes and delivers it.
Right.
I mean, it's the same thing with the songs. I mean, he's been playing with this tool called Suno Music.
It's incredible.
It's absolutely incredible.
Correct.
I mean, actually, just to give a very real example, so we have this little jingle that we play at the start of this podcast.
Right.
It's like a little 5-second jingle that I just did myself on GarageBand a long time ago. And then just last week, I thought, you know what, maybe it's time to refresh it a bit now. And so I ran that into Suno. I just took just a recording of our jingle. I ran it into Suno. And I said, well, just elevate this a little bit. And then it did, and it sounded great.
It gave lyrics as well.
Lyrics I added. But what it did was that it basically created a full song out of that little 5-seconder.
Right.
And then out of curiosity, I said, why don't we try add some lyrics and turn it into a song? And it produced something that was remarkable.
And this is where we are heading, right? We are teasing the collaboration between AI and human, and we are experimenting what is the outcome of it, right? So in this particular case, that's your songwriting partner, right? Elevate your musicality, you elevate your ability to produce right away, and there is very little downside as I can see the whole thing. I think with this kind of technology, we are just gonna see the height of humanity.
To me, human being will and always and should always remain the masters.
I agree.
And AI is the slave. But that said, there are evil people out there who can use the tool for destruction.
And just to bring it closer to home and closer to ourselves is that what we have seen is that the AI deepfake has been so much more advanced. And I was having dinner with an expert in this particular field. Is that he was showing me 15 months ago, these are the AI image, and then every 3 months. And 15 months ago, I think we all look at it, you can see, okay, there's something wrong with AI, right? And then it gets better. Like today, you cannot tell the difference. It's crazy. You cannot tell the difference. So he, on the other hand, was using AI to detect these kind of like highly nuanced images. And you can see it's a cat and mouse game. But unfortunately, in this world, there are always evil people, and they will do bad stuff. So
I mean, and to that, how do we then, and I guess this also sort of follows on from that previous thread about truth, right? How do we as a society then begin to define and discern what is true?
It's so this is why Elon Musk was saying that he wants to program an AI that is especially be committed to truth, right? Whether if he can do it or not. But I think the concept of truth is so interesting, right? Because for the longest time, truth is always with the authority. We read newspaper, we look at news. Usually, it comes from authority, right? So that was our truth. And but I think, as you can see with like mobile, with internet, the concept of truth becomes a lot more democratized simply because we have a lot more producer of truth rather than like 2 or 3 producer of truth. And to a certain degree, I would argue that that's a good thing, but there is always a downside to it where, certain people will be able to stir up certain cases irresponsibly. And it's less of an AI issue, but it's more of a societal issues. But I think we are generally moving towards a more democratized truth, where the danger of it, unfortunately, is that sometimes we get to choose to listen to what truth that potentially fits our philosophy,
right?
And thus people become more fragmented. I don't have answer to it, but then I think in the future it could become a reasonably big problem.
Yeah. So if it's a societal thing, then obviously, in order for something to then impact society at a larger scale, it all begins actually at the level of the individual. So I know, I guess for you as a dad, what are some ways that you try to maybe inculcate or instill the correct kind of ethics with your son?
That's a good question. The truth is that I think 1.5 years ago, my son actually has a band that call themselves the AI Tigers, simply because it has ChatGPT to write the lyrics. They prompt it. They say like, okay, can you write a song about my lazy dad, for example, right? So and produce the chords with it as well. Right. And then he and his friends, so one of them will play drum, the other one will play guitar and sing the song. So you can see how these guys are so naturally be able to interact with AI. But we always have to teach them to be to have certain level of integrity, because whatever that you see, whether if it's true or not, there has to be something that is true to you, right? You, for example, how you treat other people. You have to treat other people fairly. So that is regardless of what AI is telling you, right? And the other thing is that I always tell him to always think about serving other people, something more than yourself. That's how the best way to derive happiness, which is to serve more than yourself, your family. Is if you can serve more people, that is something that is usually even closer to the truth. When you try to serve more people.
On that, to close, actually, I want to ask you, in light of wanting to kind of serve a greater purpose, our podcast is called The Game of Impossible. And so for you, Chiman, what do you think is your kind of game of impossible for society through the work that you're doing?
I have been very fortunate to be able to stumble into situations that allow me to use my skills and potentially my relationships to affect things that generally is deemed as impossible. And when I listen to your podcast, it resonates very much with me, because to accomplish the impossible, you don't focus on the impossible goal itself. You focus on why you need to accomplish it, right? And with the Right Bank project, I'm especially proud of it because it was being built by, and the entire engineering team was all Malaysians. And then they all were here sitting in the same office, and we managed to build the whole bank in 6 months' time, right? So that is essentially, everyone was telling us it's impossible. Firstly, people say Malaysia do not have talent. Secondly, is that to build something of a bank usually take a lot more people. We started with 20, 25 engineers. that build a bank in 6 months' time. Most banks are being built with more than 100 engineers and being outsourced as well to Bangalore and whatnot, right? So to me, it's less about trying to achieve the impossible, but is in order to achieve something that we think that is good for the society, in Malaysia society, we try to do it within the parameter that we have. And Ilmu, for example, right? Everyone is telling us it will be crazy for you to train a model from ground up in Malaysia. It will be too expensive, and you will not be good, and you will not be competitive. But then we had a world-beating model on our hand right now, simply because we did it. And the concentration of talent that built it is even crazier. It's not just that it all came from Malaysia. Actually, all of the researchers that built a large language model came from so the concentration of talent is amazing. And before this, everyone will tell you it's impossible, and we achieve it simply because we want Malaysia to have its own large language model, LLM, and AI to inculcate our own culture.
Well, Chiman, thank you so much for your service to the country. It's been a great joy and privilege to be able to hear what you're doing, and really looking forward to what lies ahead, not just for Malaysia through the work that you're doing, but actually how this can have a ripple effect globally. Chiman, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to yet another episode of The Game of Impossible. We hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. If you enjoy conversations like this, we put up episodes every Friday at 6 a.m. on both our YouTube and Spotify. You can subscribe to those channels. We also have short form content on both our IG as well as TikTok at The Game of Impossible. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.